You know, I've always been fascinated by special effects. I used to spend hours looking through behind the scenes extras on DVDs to see how they work. I always loved seeing the hours of work that go into creating your favourite movie monsters or locations. And throughout the years, I've found more and more that these effects don't need thousands of pounds of CGI. In fact, some of them are insanely simple. And some of these effects are so simple that you can do them in the comfort of your own home. Let's check some out. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of The Science Of, the show where I take a look at the science behind your favourite game shows and more. It's the month of terror, spooks and general scariness, so what we are doing today is we are going to be taking a look into the science behind some classic movie horror effects. From poltergeist to magic powers, we're going to be taking a look at some movie magic that you can do from the comfort of your own home. When we look at the history of cinema, it surprisingly didn't take long for special effects to enter the scene. Special effects started off as simple camera tricks. So simple, in fact, that one of them was just turning the camera off, making sure all the actors freeze and changing a part of the scene quickly, then turning the camera back on to continue the shot. But as time went on, filmmakers got a bit more adventurous, with Georges Méliès the Cinemagician's 1902 film Voyage to the Moon, featuring combinations of live action, animation, miniatures and matte paintings to produce an incredible foray into science fiction. And from there, we had decades of practical movie effects creating all sorts of monsters, mayhem and hijinks. From Ray Harryhausen's stop-motion monsters to Industrial Light and Magic's expensive miniatures used in the original Star Wars. CGI effects are now so simple and easy to do that anyone can do it, even from a home computer. Even me sat here can get a simple ghost floating in the background of this shot. I mean, it's not great, but I can do it. But in the last year, we've seen a resurgence of popular movies using a majority practical effects. Barbenheimer, arguably the first large-scale cinematic event since Avengers Endgame, featured two movies that stood apart from the crowd, thanks to them both being visions of two creative directors who stood by practical effects. So let's take a look at some classic effects of the silver screen and see how you can do them for yourself at home. On the subject of ghosts and spectres, let's start off with a ghostly apparition that started in stage work all the way back in the 1820s. This is Pepper's Ghost, created by a scientist no less, analytical chemist Professor John Henry Pepper. It's a theatre technique used to create ghosts and holograms that's so effective that it's still used to this day, but not where you might think. Whilst the holograms you see on the modern movie screen are pretty much always CGI, in theme parks, Pepper's Ghost is used all over the place. The most famous use of Pepper's Ghost is the Haunted Mansion's iconic ballroom scene, but you also find it throughout the years in Universal Studios' tram tour. Pepper's Ghost is actually a really simple effect, and it can be explained using ray optics. You start with a piece of glass or film that has a different refractive index compared to the air surrounding it. Different refractive indexes means that light will move at different speeds. When light hits the boundary between the two materials, some of the light will be reflected and some of the light will be refracted. The amount of light that does each is dependent on the angle of incidence and the polarization of the light. Your typical Pepper's Ghost effect consists of a stage, a room below the stage that's lit up, and an angled wall of glass between the audience and the stage. The light from the stage will get refracted by the pane of glass, so the audience will be able to see the stage clearly, but not the glass. When a light is lit in the area below the stage, it will project the image of the illusion onto the glass. Some of this light will get reflected back to the audience, causing a semi-transparent ghostly apparition. You can do this at home really easily. All you need is some clear plastic and a phone. You start out by cutting the plastic into 4 rhombi, which you then put together to create a truncated pyramid. Then, using specially designed videos, you can have your own little hologram above your phone. The main thing that you need to make sure of is that the panels are angled at roughly 45 degrees. The angle is important for making sure the projected image looks right. This is such a simple effect, but it works so well, which is pretty amazing considering it got its start all the way back in Victorian theatre. But, did you know? While science has been helping out behind the scenes of theatre and cinema for decades, the first film dedicated to communicating science to the general public was surprisingly fun. As a part of Charles Urban's 1903 Unseen World series, we see F. Martin Duncan, a most distinguished gentleman and amateur scientist, viewing microscopic cheese mites under a magnifying glass, with tons of microscopic footage from these fromage bottom feeders. Needless to say that old Marty was made for comedy. No joke, I absolutely love his acting in this short. The face he pulls when he sees the mites is perfection. And to be fair, it's pretty incredible that they were able to film the footage they got. Shooting through a microscope isn't easy, even today, but this was more than a century ago, when cameras weighed more than your average horse and cart. Okay, so now you know how to get your own little hologram on top of your phone, but how about we shift into something a bit more tangible? Let's take into the world of glowing monsters and take a look at some fluorescence, specifically phosphorescence. Phosphorescence is a type of photoluminescence. This means that atoms release light when they're excited by particles of ultraviolet or visible light. Depending on the particle you use, you can get a wide range of colours. This differs from typical fluorescence, which I've discussed in the past, as the light emitted will tend to last much longer. This is best explained with a Jablonski diagram. It shows the 3 steps involved in phosphorescence: photon absorption, excited state lifetime, and finally photon or light emission. In absorption, packets of energy get absorbed by phosphorescent atoms. These excite the light-absorbing molecules into a higher energy level. Now, the goal of your average atom is to be at its lowest energy state possible. So when atoms are excited, they immediately want to release their energy and go back down to their base state. The time between being excited and starting to release the energy is called the excited state lifetime. And what a lifetime it is! Seconds or even minutes of glowing. And whilst this might not sound that impressive, if you compare it to typical fluorescence, which lasts about 1 to 10 nanoseconds, you can appreciate the difference. After that staggering lifetime, we finally get the phosphorescence emission. Beginning at a low excited state, the high energy atoms release energy, decaying back to their ground state, releasing that excess energy as photons of light. You'll note that the colour of the phosphorescence is different to the colour of the light used to excite the atoms. This is an essential part of the process. The excited atom has already lost a bit of energy during its excited state lifetime, so the light released during phosphorescence will always be of a longer wavelength than the light needed for excitation. And if you want to create your own glowing movie monsters, then you don't actually need any toxic chemicals or bioluminescent molecules, you just need some simple paint. In fact, you can buy phosphorescent powder which you can mix with acrylic paints, allowing you to get some pretty cool glowing effects, especially if you're a fan of painting miniatures. It's worth noting that if you want to try this effect for yourself, you're going to need to do it somewhere dark. Not pitch black by any means, but if light hits your fluorophore, it can cause what is known as fluorescent bleaching. This is when a fluorophore loses its ability to emit light due to light-inflicted chemical damage. So both of those are pretty amazing effects. Nice and simple, not dangerous at all. But what if you want something a bit more dangerous? Imagine having the ability to conjure smoke from your fingertips, looking like you could melt coins with a single touch. This smoky effect requires some matches and a porcelain surface. Place ceramics into the freezer and keep it there until it's good and cool. Then take your box of matches and cut off the striking strip. This strip contains red phosphorus, which you'll want to peel off and turn into a little tent. Place this tent onto your previously chilled porcelain and burn it. This will be burning the red phosphorus to produce white phosphorus and phosphorus oxide, a waxy substance that needs to cool off completely before you touch it. Once cool, you can rub it between your fingers and this will produce smoke. Hi all, Future Toggle here. You can tell I'm from the future because I'm wearing a red shirt. Fancy. Anyway, you might have noticed that experiment did not quite work. There was no smoke coming from my fingers in that final shot. The reason? I have no idea. It could have been the type of matches that I was using, because I was using cooking matches rather than most videos which use strike anywhere matches. There might be a difference in what's on the strike strip. Bit more red phosphorus, who knows. It could also have been that I just didn't leave it to cool for long enough. Again, maybe, I don't 100% know for sure. I did try a couple of times, but it didn't really work either time, so if you want to see this effect actually work, check out this video here from Vsauce. He gets it working, unlike me. Anyway, on with the explanation. The scratch pad contains red phosphorus, and when it burns, it turns into white phosphorus, which, because of the mixtures in it, takes the form of a thick oily liquid on the bottom of the porcelain. When this liquid is rubbed between your fingers, the phosphorus is oxidised by oxygen in the air, forming phosphorus oxide 3 or phosphorus oxide 5, which is released in the form of a white smoke. So yeah, when this effect works, it can be pretty great. Hi, Future Toggle again. Just to say that if you want to try doing this experiment at home, make sure you're doing it safely. That means doing it in a well-ventilated area. Put on some goggles because there are some vapours from burning the red phosphorus, which could be a bit irritating. And also make sure you've got a mask on, again because the white phosphorus, when it burns, is a chemical irritant. So make sure you cover your eyes, cover your respiratory system, and do it somewhere well ventilated, and it should all be good. Hopefully you get better results than I do, as long as you do it safely. So there we go. Those are just some examples of effects from the stage and screen that are nice and simple for you to do in your own home. If you'd like to see me cover more of the science behind some classic movie effects, then comment down below telling me what movies you'd like to see me cover. Or if you want to see me cover some more movie magic, take a look at the video here, where I take a look at the science behind Godzilla. If you enjoyed this video, then please remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, so I can keep exploring the science behind your favourite game shows and more. But before I go, I've released a few shorts lately in between my main videos, and I've had some great responses, so let's cover a few of those. From the science of Balloon Tower Defense's Glue Gunner, we have a very accurate, complex but cool from Balloon's channel. Then for the science of the Futurama theorem, I asked you what your favourite Futurama science joke was, and Type Blazini brought up this great joke from the Futurama Holiday Spectacular Robonica segment.
Depth at 4,500 feet, 4,800, 5,000, 5,000 feet!
Dear Lord, that's over 150 atmospheres of pressure. How many atmospheres can the ship withstand? Well, it's a spaceship, so I'd say anywhere between 0 and 1.
And finally, from the science of Minecraft's delicate diamonds, there were a couple of comments bringing up that obsidian would make a pretty poor sword, as it's much more brittle than diamond, but it would probably make a decent knife. Great point that I hadn't covered. Thanks for all your comments and please keep them coming, I really do appreciate them. I'll be back with more shorts throughout the next month, and then after that we're going to be covering the science of Mario Party, so make sure you're here to check that out.